week?
Well, there's one thing that I'm doing tomorrow night, but this is a kind of shameless plug, and I'm afraid if it's okay. It's not an event that people can attend, but there's a debate run by people called Intelligence Squared, and they're holding a debate on the subject. The motion for debate is it's wrong to pay for sex. And a friend of mine speaking at the debate. It's sold out, unfortunately, but I was just going to say to people, if they can, go to the Intelligence Squared website and vote against the motion that it's wrong to pay for sex.
Intelligent?
Intelligence Squared.
Intelligence,
yes.
CE, Intelligence.
Yeah, Squared. And vote against the motion that it's wrong to pay for sex.
Is that SQUARED?
Yes.
So Intelligence Squared. So INTELLIGENCE SQUARED.
Yeah.
Did you say .com?
I think it's yes, it is .com.
Okay.
And again, if you just Google Intelligence Squared, that'll come up.
All right, listening live. If you want to do that, you can do that whilst you just minimise the audio, and away you go and vote for Catherine. Well, her people, her folks.
Brilliant.
Her
yeah,
views.
A friend of mine called Belinda Brooks Gordon is speaking, who's very lovely. And also speaking are Jermaine Greer, Rob Little, Joan Bakewell, whom I'm going to be excited to meet. And I can't remember who's speaking that in favour that it is wrong to pay for sex. There's a professor of philosophy.
Which one?
But but I'm not sure. It's not A.C. Grayling, because he's fairly intelligent. And it's interesting that they chose not to have somebody from the sex industry. Oh, Joan Smith, who's a columnist with The Independent. Raymond Tallis. Sorry, he's a professor of medicine and a philosopher and poet. So I haven't read any of his poetry that I know of. Are speaking to say that it is wrong to pay for sex. And... yeah, and I'd say there are various other people saying, no, it's not wrong, that people should be able to make a choice.
Oh, and it's chaired by Toby Young. Isn't he the guy who was on Have I Got News for You last week?
I think so. I think they've changed it because Joan Bakewell was the chair, and she published an article saying she thought it was okay to pay for sex. And so the other side said, we must, she can't chair it, which in a way is fair enough. Okay. And it'll be interesting to see what Toby Young makes of it. I think he was one of the people. Have you heard of a book, a writer called Belle de Jour? They did a TV series with Billie Piper of her book, and she's an anonymous writer. She's was a high-class escort who published a book that was made into a TV series, and various people were speculating about who she was. And I think Toby Young was one of the people that was saying that he might have written this book pretending to be a high-class escort. So it'll be interesting to meet him.
Okay. Good. We've got another call lined up for you. Does that conclude your arts roundup for the week?
That's it for the week.
Beautiful.
And yeah.
Okay. Well, we look forward to next week. Do you happen to know what you might be going to see next week?
Well, I'm going to Edinburgh, and I'm only there for one night, so I'll probably go to a gallery in Edinburgh. And I'm also hoping to go to either the Roscoe or the Bacon exhibition, which are big exhibitions on in London at the moment. And and I'm not sure for the third thing. I'll try and ring the changes.
Okay, I think we have Oscar up next, who wants to join in the conversation on the side on the sex side of the conversation. Hello, Oscar, you there?
Hi.
Hello, Tommy. Yes. Can you hear me all right?
Fine. Hear you fine.
Oh, hi, Catherine, yes. It's not exactly about kinks, but I suppose it's about the things that you do and the things that you don't do and the things that you like doing and the things that you don't like doing. And it's something that I've kind of heard. I'm not experienced at all in the use of prostitutes. I have to say I've never used one, but I have heard it said from time to time from a number of sources that you can persuade prostitutes to do almost anything, but one of the things that they're most reluctant to do is actually kissing on the lips, mouth to mouth. And I was wondering, can you tell me whether that's true or not, perhaps in your case, or indeed, from what you know of other prostitutes, do they have this kind of policy?
I'd say both of those things are wrong. There's this bizarre fiction that is generally much more common amongst people who have no connection to the sex industry, that we can be persuaded to do almost anything. And that's one of the arguments used against prostitution. You buy this woman and she'll do anything. And, sort of everybody I know, and I've worked in quite a range of different places, has had fairly strong boundaries. Those boundaries may vary depending on how much money you're prepared to pay, but the idea that you just pay, hand over the money, and then you have this plastic doll in your hands to do with as you wish is one absolutely incorrect myth. And as I say, whatever end of the spectrum I've been, I've been working in, and other people I know who've worked on the street, because I've only worked indoors, they say the same thing. Kind of if it's been a really quiet night and you're desperate for a hit, your boundaries may be flexible or your prices may be falling, but you're still going to have them. You're still going to make decisions about what you do. Generally, I'd say the people I know kiss, not everybody. I used not to, and I found my work is much easier now I do. It's much more interesting. And, when I started, I think, God, why did I do it all the time that I now spend kissing people? So, yeah, I'd say it definitely varies. And I'd say certainly past a certain sort of price bracket, you're generally assuming you'll get that. Sometimes you see there's an acronym, GFE, girlfriend experience, and some people use that to refer to kissing, and some people it's more about your demeanor. It means that you're friendly, it means that you're approachable, it means you're warm, rather than purely businesslike. But no, people always have boundaries, and I'd say, yeah, a lot of people kiss. And if you do ever decide to explore, your sexual needs in a commercial environment, if that is something that would be important to you, check it out with them in advance so that you know when you're going into the situation if there's a boundary there or not. And of course, it goes without saying that you'd respect that boundary.
Okay, it seems kind of interesting that it would appear that for women, it's almost like kissing is for them more intense than penetrative sex. It seems to be a deeper, something more.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or not. I mean, obviously,
certainly you'd have to say that. I mean, any prostitute, you say that some prostitutes won't kiss, but they'll all have sex, and that would sort of be an indication that women regard it as something more special.
I don't know. I don't think you can say it in terms of gender. I mean, I know men who find kissing really intense. I see clients who don't want to kiss me because they say that's not something that I do in this situation. So I don't think it's necessarily a gendered thing. And certainly to say, I think it's very risky to generalise about, men experience sex like this, women experience sex like that, because, apart from anything else, we've got no way of checking. You only have the experience you have as a man, it sounds like. I only have the experience I have as a woman. And even with my, when I've been in a relationship with a woman, we've been talking about sex a lot. We've not, you can't describe exactly what those experiences are like. Yes, it certainly is something that's very intimate and very powerful. I also meet people who won't let somebody go down on them and things like that. So, yeah, I just think it's very difficult to generalise, and there is no way of checking the truth of those generalisations.
Oscar, thank you for your call.
Okay, great for that. Thanks.
Talk to you again sometime. Catherine, this email coming from... Where's the emails gone again? Have you clicked the emails where Scott emailed just to say, wow, this lady is fantastic. I could listen to her all night.
Oh,
and that's good, isn't it?
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
Hey, same time next week?
That'll be terrific.
Looking forward to it already.
Okay, thanks so much, and all the best till then.
Lots of love. Sleep well. Bye.
And you. Bye.
That's Catherine Catt, a full-time hooker, who is also our arts correspondent on a Monday night. She's taking herself off this week. She's one night in Edinburgh. I wanted to jump in and say, what are you up to in Edinburgh? But that was a bit prying, wouldn't it? She's one night in Edinburgh, so she's going to take in a museum. And then she might go and see the Bacon exhibition. Or did she say the Rothko? Or either, or both. In London, I think. And then bring that to us next week, along with, if you have any questions about romance, but mainly the physical side of romance, sex, your own sexuality, your own sexual preferences, some of the stranger things that give you a little Philip, your little peccadillos, whatever you want to call them, you know what we're talking about here. Nobody just wants to make do with the missionary position in the bedroom twice a week, lasting 7.5 minutes. Nobody wants that to be all their sex life is. But a lot of people get worried if they start about the possibility of starting to introduce other ideas into their sex lives, that they're going to have all sorts of difficulties introducing it, whatever stage of the relationship, really. And I would have thought your first date is going to be as difficult a time to raise it as like 10 years into a marriage. So, Catherine's the person to at least help you realise that whatever it is, almost whatever it is, okay, you heard what she was saying, it's fine and it's normal. And there are good ways and bad ways of going about it, and doesn't she know what she's talking about on that score? So that's fantastic. Something
has just occurred to me, though. We always assume that it would be men going to a female prostitute for sex. And we know that there are male prostitutes. But I wondered how often somebody like Catherine would be approached by another woman.
Oh, ask her next week.
Yeah.
Ask her next week. It's 10 to 11 in the UK. Here are some things which I absolutely insist you listen to extremely carefully and then respond to in exactly the way the message thrusts.
Get Play Radio at your fingertips by downloading our exclusive toolbar. Get the latest updates from Play Radio UK, check out the webcams, or find out your local weather. It's even got its very own search engine. Download the toolbar now by clicking on the banner at playradiouk.com.
With Christmas well and truly upon us, you may be thinking about digging out your old festive CDs. The thing with Christmas compilations is they get thrown in some box somewhere. By the time it comes around again, you've forgotten where you put them and have to go out and buy some more. Well, we have the solution. Just follow these 3 easy steps to seasonal satisfaction. 1. Switch on your computer. 2. Go to playradiouk.com. And 3. Click on Play Christmas. Play Christmas UK. So good, it's Santa's favourite station.
Play 2 UK. The Tommy Boyd Show.
Sorry, I'm talking to a caller here. No, you see what you made me do there? You see, you gave me dead air. Not that I give a shit, but you gave me dead air there by going on whilst I'm listening to the commercials.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
No, you gave me
That's
dead
because
air.
I'm on my mobile. I'm not on my dollar.
That isn't the point. It's just that it isn't the point. I was vetting you.
Right.
Vetting you.
I deserve to be vetted, something.
Because we're building a new switchboard area at Play.
Right.
And so consequently, whilst the building work is taking place,
Yes.
I'm vetting calls myself. And so
I asked you, Vicky.
and I was
Can
there
I tell you this?
trying to establish whether or not you had any merit as a caller. And the commercials petered out. And we were left.
I can advertise anything you like. Buy a BMW.
Well,
Now,
what
go
do you-
ahead.
what
Buy
do
a
you-
BMW.
What do you
Double
say?
the range, quickly. Yeah, that's all right.
Right. So the question you
Buy
would
a
have...
red Xerox, whatever they sell.
There's no...
Photocopier.
Nobody uses photocopiers anymore.
They don't, do they? All fax machines.
Well, I've got a
get
fax
one.
machine. I've used it once. Once I used it. I put on a wrestling tournament, and the only way I could get a document to a lawyer with 48 hours to go before the wrestling tournament, the only way he'd accept it was if it was faxed, so I had to go down into town to Dixon's. Do you remember Dixon's? They used to have shops called Dixon's. They'd sell cameras, and they'd sell television sets, and right out the back they had one fax machine left over, and they sold it me. They sold it me for 190 quid, and I took it home, and it took me 2 hours to get it set up, and once I'd spent 190 quid and 2 hours to set it up, I sent the fax. I was still buggered, because after all, a lawyer is a lawyer. And the top and tail of it is I've now got the fax in the attic, and and that's the end of it. It'll be there forever. A brand new fax. So anyway, this lawyer, right?
That's what they're like. You can't win, Tom. You can't win. You pull me one on behind your back.
They turn up at court, the Old Bailey, on the Monday morning, because
What?
the judge... Do you
You
know
have
what?
a tie on?
Do you know this
Wear
one?
a tie.
The judge, listen carefully,
I am.
they turn up at court on the Monday morning because the judge, over the weekend, has written out his summing up. You know, you've been to court many times, haven't you?
No, never been there. Always managed to bung them a few quid before I had to turn up some, if you see what I
Once
mean.
the case is over,
Yes,
once they've heard everything, the judge sums up. And what he normally likes to do is adjourn the court, if possible, for the weekend,
yes.
so that he can complete
Country member.
his summing up.
Yes.
Now, this is a true story, and it's told by John Mortimer, who, of course, wrote Rumpole of the Bailey, and was himself a distinguished case lawyer.
Weren't they just?
So they all turn up at the Old Bailey on the Monday. Everybody, the defendant, his lawyers, the prosecution, the jury, the relatives, the press, they're all there. And they all stand, and the judge comes in his robes and his wig. And he sits down,
Defenders.
and he calls the prosecution and the defence to come to him.
All right.
So they come up, and they go, what?
What's up?
And he
You're
says...
a fax machine, but
He says, the judge says, in quite a loud voice,
what?
I'm afraid, he says, I'm afraid I have left,
All the papers.
I have left my summation
Can you fax me?
in my weekend cottage in the Cotswolds.
In the where? In the fridge.
The Cotswolds. So
Vodka, they're all vodka drinkers in my court.
So the defence lawyer says to him, fax
We want
it.
an adjournment.
The defence lawyer,
Taking adjournment, Mr. Boyd.
the defence lawyer says to him, fax it up, my lord.
Never gonna
And the
fax-
judge
never gonna
goes,
make this stand
it, and the judge goes, it does rather, doesn't it? You see, fax it up. Fax it up, my lord. And the judge goes, it does rather, doesn't it? I've beaten him off there with a... There's two ways to beat off a stalker like that. There's with a big stick or with a fine anecdote. It's a good anecdote, that, isn't it? Right, where do we get to? So, a couple of things. First of all, Scott C., who emailed, this Catherine lady is so fantastic on so many levels, I could listen to this lady all night. And I emailed him back saying, ain't she special? And he has emailed me back to say, ooh, yes. And I know that's how he says it. You know, yeah. Ooh, yes. Briggsy says, on the subject of wishing to listen to Catherine all night, just wondering, what would that cost? He says, bad joke, I'll get back in my box. No, that's all right. That's fine. What have we got next?
We've got Stephen back on Skype.
Stephen, the man who...
All right, guys. All right.
All right. Listen, I want to be honest with you. I want to be blunt with you. Are you sure that the story that you told Catherine, the hooker cum arts correspondent, about a woman walking up to you at a party and saying, I want to hurt you, and you ending up...
Sorry, I hate to interrupt. Something led up to that. I didn't just meet her out of the blue. I had spoken to her a few hours before at a sci-fi convention. Are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, mate. And I kind of took over from a mate.
Are
who
you
was
quite
massaging
sure
her.
that this actually happened? Because
I
I think
swear, with my
Catherine
hand
was,
on my heart,
Catherine was
it
being
happened.
polite. I suspect she may have wanted to say to you, are you sure that you're not giving semi-flesh to a fantasy by saying that it actually happened to you?
No, I'm really sorry if it sounded that way. I got a bit annoyed when I was cut off. I really wanted to hear what she was trying to say afterwards. I got really, frustrated in the kind of normal way, not that way. I really mean it was true. It wasn't an entirely pleasant experience because I'd like to have kind of known the person first, if you know what I mean. It wasn't like, oh wow, I'm so turned on.
So what's your favourite fantasy then?
I like to be. I have a few. One thing I liked was when I was kind of. I liked. One is the schoolgirl kind of thing. I'd love to be a teacher in a 19th century girls' boarding school. That would be fantastic. And also I like the idea of being like a cat, or to be treated like a cat, so to speak. Almost like a George Galloway kind of thing.
Okay. So you're into domination and I believe it's what's called submission or submissiveness. Or
yeah, but I'm kind of a new beginner. The intent is there, the knowledge is there, the experience ain't.
Well, so is the internet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I need the internet really. I kind of have it forced upon me a lot of the time.
Do you think, Stephen, that because I'm pretty certain.
Yeah.
That these kind of offshoots of sexuality are very common amongst men. But do you think it's as normal for
women?
What,
mate, I've met more women that have kind of shown this than men.
But are you just talking about your particular thing, which is, BDSM, whatever they call it?
I would say it's pretty level. But I would say the women are more keen on the domination side, but I could be wrong.
Where do you go to meet all these women?
There aren't that many. It's kind of like I don't know how they see it in me, but I see it in them. I know it's there.
Are you sure it's just not in your imagination that you want to see it in them?
It's kind of like a way they have of behaving with me, if you know what I mean. That I am. Other people have seen it. I'm kind of. They know that they have to argue with me, they have to tell me to do things in a certain way. It's just really extremely common. It's really normal, actually.
Would you consider paying for it?
Nah. But, no, I don't think so.
But if you're not going to pay for it, which is where you get it transformed into a transaction whereby you can dictate, provided the provider accepts the transaction, you can dictate exactly what you want. I would have thought that as a normal social transaction, it's going to call for quite high negotiating skills to get some girl or bloke, I don't know whether you swing both ways or whatever, to do exactly what it is that's in your mind.
If anybody is getting into these things, what they really have to do is, because accidents can happen naturally, people have to practically write a tick list, verbal or otherwise. Otherwise, it can be scary. People can go into there's a term called crashing, where people psychologically fall apart. Basically, it's too scary for them. So, in order to avoid that, there has to be this kind of negotiation. And quite a few don't bother. And
when do you think you're next going to find yourself enjoying one of these situations? What are we here? It's Monday night, not until the weekend. It's got to be a weekend thing, hasn't it?
I'll tell you what, I haven't planned it that far ahead.
Okay.
If it doesn't happen, I'm not that bothered.
No, the kind of events where you might find yourself able to have these conversations and then this sort of posturing foreplay, pre-foreplay. I can't see it happening on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, or I might be wrong. It strikes to me as being very Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah, there's a possibility. I'm going to a boxing gala on Saturday. It's actually the boxing club I used to be part of. A lot of female members, I should add. I seem to get
Where are you Skyping from again?
I'm Borås in Sweden.
Right. No, boxing's big in Sweden. I think the last European heavyweight champion before Lennox Lewis was Swedish, wasn't he? Ingemar Johansson, that was it. Stephen, thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much indeed for your three penn'orth.
Very good evening. Bye-bye.
Very good evening. Bye-bye. Earlier we had Catherine Catt on. She is our arts correspondent and a hooker, and next week she will also be reviewing one or two or three, could be art exhibitions, could be museums, might be movies, might be opera, Might be TV. She hasn't done too much TV yet. Might be an experience, such as one week she visited Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, and she did a crit on that from an art point of view rather than the food. But she'll also be happy to take calls, emails, Skype messages, however you want to do it, about what she does by way of a day job. She's a sex worker. She's a full-time hooker. And she's quite comfortable to have herself described like that. Well, it's 3 minutes past 11. What have we got next? We've got more calls coming in from people wanting to discuss their little peccadillos, which is... What they're doing is they're treating me as a sounding board, I think, Fiona, as if I know anything, apart from my own fairly tame experiences, has to be said. I've kissed a man twice. I've been snogged twice by a man. I suppose that's the most exotic, beyond the pushing of the envelope thing I've got.
Did you enjoy it?
Well, it wasn't sexual. It was just deep affection. They're both huge men, actually. Mm-hmm. One of them was 6'4", tall, and the other one was 6'4" at the chest.
Right, goodness.
And on both occasions, it was just because we were really, really, really good friends, and they'd had a little bit too much to drink.
Right.
And one was a country boy, and very sort of hippie. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was okay. That was non-sexual. Mm-hmm. The other one was a New Zealander, a Kiwi. Mm-hmm. And just about the most butch bloke you could possibly imagine. So there was nothing sexual about it at all.
Well, it doesn't...
And he just said to me suddenly at a party in the hall, I was leaving and he was staying on, I was going, and just went, give us a kiss. And I thought, okay, fair enough. And he was all over me. Lips, tongue.
Oh.
Colleagues were coming in and out.
What do you mean tongue?
Yeah.
Well, he stuck his tongue inside your mouth?
Yes. Huge bloke. Over me like King Kong. I felt like Fay Ray. And the thing was, we worked at the same radio station, and there were colleagues going backwards and forwards going, oh, I see there, Tommy's done all right then. He's off with, this giant.
Yeah.
But that's the strangest I've ever got. And that wasn't sexual.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that people can feel free to email, Skype, or call in, the beginnings. I think lots of men listening would like to talk to Catherine anonymously about the little things that they've always thought marked them down as being halfway to being a weirdo, but actually aren't. Because sex is such a strange thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Stephen's not worried about that, is he?
No, he's not. He's proud of it, isn't he?
Yeah.
Actually. In fact, you could buy a hat with your sexual preferences written across the band, he'd actually put a light in behind it and have it walking along, flashing.
Neon.
This is me. Your footstool for the night and the rest of it. Okay, some important words. I know it's behind... Do you know it's not behind us, firework night? Because in my one stop today, they were selling off fireworks cheap. And there were lads buying them.
Right.
And these were lads who you knew were not deeply concerned that we should celebrate.
How old were the lads?
What was it, 20, 21?
Right, okay.
And you knew that these were people who were not celebrating the overthrow of an attempt to blow up Parliament. There was nothing religious or historical about their desire to have these fucking great fireworks.
Just on that note, I was attempting to explain, actually it was on firework night, I was attempting to explain to my children, particularly my 5-year-old boy who was being kept awake by the fireworks. Actually, they are giving me a headache, is what he said. So I was trying to explain to him what it was all about, and my daughter, who was listening on as well. And as I was telling the story of Guy Fawkes and firework night, I just thought, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Isn't it, though?
It
the
is.
whole concept of, somebody tried to blow up Parliament, and now all these years later, we celebrate. Yeah.
Well, we do celebrate historical events in a strange way around the world. And I always think that there's nothing stranger than celebrating the fact that we nailed a very nice man, I think Jesus probably was. I personally don't believe he was physically the Son of God, so that means probably I'll burn in hell.
Right.
Although I don't think he would have approved of that kind of idea. However, men in strange hats argue that. But we celebrate or commemorate us torturing this man almost to death, and then nailing him to some wood, and leaving him to hang there until he eventually expired of pain and exhaustion. And we commemorate this fact by eating chocolate eggs.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's on the day that he is supposed to have risen from the dead, but it does seem to me that this is such a ghastly... The event itself, I know the resurrection is... Personally, I think it's a metaphor, but whatever.
Yeah.
But to have the two things in there, when you're a child, it's very confusing.
Well, it is when you're when you're an
When
adult
you're a
trying
child
to
and
explain
it's the Friday, it's the anniversary of them doing this to him.
Yeah.
And you're 7, 8, and 9. You don't have it very well explained to you. How could they? They shouldn't really explain it at all.
No.
Leave it until they're grown up. And then let them say, here's what was written about this thing in the Bible. And he probably was killed hideously, because they used to kill people hideously.
Yeah.
But when you're pumping it into 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old children, and then it's the Friday, and you're walking around the house thinking, was it about now that he was being flayed alive? And I guess it was about now they were making him carry this bit of wood that weighed about 3 times as much as a railway sleeper up a hill where they were going to nail him to it. Now, I guess it was about now they were nailing him.
Yeah.
You know, grotesque. So you talk about...
And they call it Good Friday.
Yeah, there's that. Anyhow. It is because I noticed that we have some important messages regarding ways in which we celebrate the hanging, drawing and quartering of Guido Fawkes, which include sparklers.
Enjoy yourselves this bonfire night, but remember, even a little sparkler burns at around 2,000 degrees centigrade. Don't mess with fireworks.
Want to see Wonderbra star Katie Green, Lee Francis, the man behind Avid Marion and Keith Lemon, Sunday League Madness, Jimmy Carr, 2009's Best Games Reviewed, and brand new Jennifer Ellison picks. For the fittest women, the biggest celebs, and the loudest laughs, get loaded. New issue on sale now.
Broadcasting live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, the Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Good evening, 10 past 11 UK time. Hello, good evening around the world, good day around the world, and hello if you're podcasting. Remember, if you are podcasting, you can still feedback on anything that you want to comment on. My email address at Play Radio UK is tommy@playradiouk.com. This evening I'm on studio at playradiouk.com. You can Skype play.radio.uk, and the switchboard number is 01243 55 50 55 60 60. We've been talking about cloning this evening, and we've been talking with a professor, Malcolm Allison, Professor of STEM Biology from Barts and the London School of Medicine and Dentistry. There's a mouse running around somewhere in Japan who died 16 years ago and has been frozen ever since, and they've taken some tiny little nodules or whatever from his brain and somehow managed to turn it into a baby mouse, an embryo of a mouse, which is then implanted in the womb of a lady mouse. The lady mouse's DNA doesn't penetrate this new mouse, which is, of course, the old mouse, at all. And so the mouse that is born is an exact replica, or as near as, damn it, with the possibility of some DNA contamination, but as near as, damn it, exactly the mouse that died 16 years ago. Which is fascinating, because it's just plain fascinating by itself.
However, having said that,
yes,
of course, because we know that we are shaped by our experiences and our environment, you could argue that it wouldn't necessarily be the same person.
Yes. I'm confused. Up on my screen, up on the many screens I've got in front of me, there's one that says Chris on Skype.
Yes.
Is that a Skype
That's who you
caller?
should be talking to.
Oh, hi, Chris, is it? No, I've got a thing here that says not much good with Skype, not wishing to irritate.
No, it should be there.
Are you there, Chris? Try again.
I'll tell you what.
I'll leave you
Do
to
it
faff
again.
with that whilst I read out a couple of emails. We've got this on the business of... Oh, sorry, I've taken your screen off. You do that. I'll make up some emails now then. This from the Tommy Boy Shrine. The Kiss. Was it with Scott Chisholm and you enjoyed it? Is the question. And yes, the Kiss was with this huge, fantastic Australian Kiwi guy called Scott Chisholm. I miss Scott. He's huge, real geezer's geezer. Scott. I mean, dripping in testosterone. Not the slightest bit gay. Are you saying that Chris is back?
Well, let's try.
Chris, you there? Okay. We've got a problem with Skype, in which case we'll just leave it to one side.
Okay.
Or, well, you can keep faffing if you want. Faffing, technical term for... So I've emailed back to this caller and said, yes, it was very buddy, and they've said, ha-ha, class. You keep trying with Skype. I'll tell you my favourite Scott Chisholm story, which goes like this. How's this for a bloke, okay? I flew to Los Angeles with him. I've told this one on before, but not here, so forgive me if you've heard this story before, but it's a good story. It's about, you know, the ultimate bloke's bloke. I flew to Los Angeles with Scott, and without dropping names, I think the other bloke who was in the group was the guy who's just suspended John Gaunt, but that's totally by the by. So the three of us landed in Los Angeles after an 8-hour flight. And what do you do on an 8-hour flight? You have a few beers, don't you?
I guess.
Well, three blokes, you see. And they flew us business. Anyway. So we... 2 hours to wait for the plane to take off, went to the bar. And then once you're drinking. So we then drank across the Atlantic. And it's an 8-hour flight to Los Angeles. And then we landed. And then we got our stuff, and it was, I forget, it was about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, Los Angeles time. We went to our hotel. And, you know, you're absolutely knackered, aren't you, after that? Are you not knackered?
Yeah.
So I checked in, and the other guy checked in, and Scott checked in, more or less at the same time. And we had our bags and our coats, and we did the checking in thing. And I went upstairs, and I said, shall we have a nightcap? And they all went, yeah. So I went up to my room, and I did what I usually do. I lay my stuff out, you know, the old bathroom bag, toothpaste, shaving kit, lay it out. I had a shower. Beautiful. After 8 hours on a plane, you know, beautiful. Put on some nice clean togs. And about 3/4 of an hour after we checked in, remember we were steaming when we arrived.
Yeah.
Or at least, you know, very drunk. Tiddly. 45 minutes. Wash, brush up. I'm ready for another couple of jars. And I go down to the bar. And sat in the bar by himself, tiny bar, 3 bar stools, 1 barmaid, is Scott.
Right.
Okay. Now, he hasn't got there early. He hasn't showered and shaved quicker than us, right? Because Scott checked in, then carried his suitcases straight to the bar.
Right.
And he's sitting with a suitcase on either side of him, his London coat on, right? And his hat. And he's got another fag on, okay? And he's on his 4th or 5th drink.
Right.
Now, I couldn't do that.
No.
Because although I've got a reasonably well-trained liver, or at least I had, you know, this guy was just head and shoulders. I'd put him in a drinking match with Ian Botham, and I would expect Scott to do very, very well.
Right.
That's, you know, when we're talking about a bloke.
Will you talk to these people?
What's the matter? Hello?
Hello. Is this the great mustachio shaving debate?
No, you're
No?
through to
All
Radio...
right, then.
It's Radio 4. We're talking about the recession.
Good. Because I hope it occurs to everybody that deserves it.
What, the recession?
Yes.
I agree.
I hope it brings them all to their knees, and they will maybe consider how lucky they are. However, I wish to talk about vivisection. from the mouse's, the rodent's point of view, Tom.
Yeah, very well, go ahead.
Now, well, it presupposes that I believe in reincarnation, which I'm not completely... don't point to me like that!
Can I just interrupt you for a second, because I've just got an email flash.
I do hope so.
From Colin in Cardiff, who says, Tommy, you're confusing Tom Selleck and 007 with Pierce Brosnan, who was contracted to Remington Steel, and NBC would not release Brosnan until his contract finished in 1987. Brosnan was wanted for the role in 007 after Roger Moore retired in 1985. Selleck has never been considered for the job. Interestingly, a man who was considered in 1985 when Tim Dalton was cast...
Ooh, it was a killer, he was. Go on.
...was Lewis Collins, who was...
yes. Bodie and Doyle. Go on.
Bodie in the cult series...
Never watched it, mate.
The Professionals.
Gordon Jackson, sorry.
Yes, will you bear with me?
Yes, of course I will.
Because I'm just going to go next door into the programme preparation area at Play Radio UK. And I'm just going to let you and Fiona just
have a chat with Free about...
Yes, whilst I get some emails that have been sent to me at my home.
What you have to do. Good evening, Fiona.
Good evening.
I'm sure he's making excuses.
I don't know where he's going, really.
What's wrong with him? Is he going to empty something, a baggie perhaps? Or
Could be. So what's all this about the moustache, then?
An old broadcaster's trick, is it, to leave me and you on the phone talking about my moustache?
Dangerous, isn't it?
Well, it's not really whether I have a moustache. It's not to do with me, because vanity is not a thing that I subscribe to.
So what's it to do with, then? Who's it to do with?
I haven't washed my hair since... when was it Timothy Dalton was appointed?
1985.
No, I haven't washed it 2 years after that, 87.
Why?
No. Yes, I became a wrestler in 1987.
Did you?
But I don't like to talk about that.
No, best not.
Anyway, but when he gets back, what I wanted to mention to the boss is the lady was talking about mice and how they don't like to be tortured to help us, human beings.
Jan Creamer.
Sorry?
Jan Creamer, Chief Executive...
Jan Creamer?
Yeah, of
There you are.
of the
Cream
National
with
Anti-Vivisection
a K or
Society.
cream with a C? How do you spell creamer? I just want to put it in my Filofax.
Creamer.
The creamers. I tell you what, I've met a couple of creamers in my pen. Anyway, if I was a mouse or a rodent, in that way, perhaps even one of these little... They look like gerbils or hamsters, they're not, but they live up mountains. Have you come across them?
Not recently, no.
Oh, well, I tell you what, one of the easiest ways to get them is Google little rodents up mountains. But they're never seen them. You don't see them about the town. You don't even see them in pet shops. I'm not saying they're any smarter than your average rodents or your average mouse, especially those that are not bred for vivisection. However, if you did believe in the eternal wheel, and if there was a chance that if we don't learn the lessons that we are supposed to learn in this incarnation, we might come back as a rodent. And I couldn't think, as a rodent, even though I was bred to suffer in the way that she was talking about, having things put in my eyes, pins, hot pins, and having my little rodent feet, all the torture you can imagine. I would like to do that for mankind, you know.
Well, the way things are going, it sounds as though you're just as likely to come back as a woolly mammoth.
Now that presupposes we can be born in time in the back. So, hello?
Yeah.
Are you back?
He is back.
He's emptied his colostomy bag, has he?
Yes, he has.
It's not that. I have to
do... We're now drinking with both of them tonight.
Oh, do you know, I was on
Half a litre.
I was doing a show in Meridian Studios, and there was a studio audience. It was an afternoon show, and we had to...
What, in the afternoon, though?
We had to have a break in recording because one of the audience's colostomy bags overflowed.
Oh, no!
They do that. Was he a young man with a bag, was he? Or was he an old bloke with a bag?
It was very embarrassing. So what I had to do, you see, was to go and retrieve some emails, because a lot of emails get sent to my personal thing during the show.
I'm sure they're not talking about me and my moustache. It seems such a pointless thing, but I do think I did overhear, because I put you on pause, something you says I can save 90% of shaving expenses.
Yes, I can.
That's not including the hot water, obviously.
No.
You know what you're saying? We don't need hot water to shave anymore.
Well, not really, no. What I do, you see,
Right. Go around somebody else's house.
No,
have
what
a
I do-
shave, use it.
I buy.
I've done that. I go to Tesco's mainly.
I buy bulk
Steal the soap.
menthol crystals.
Right.
Very
Oh,
cheap.
yes.
You'd be surprised how cheap they are.
Softens your beard.
And what I do,
Permanently, I've heard.
I mix it. What I do is I buy a sachet of menthol crystals.
Okay.
Right? And then I empty them into a full half-pint bottle of top-quality light olive oil.
Now,
Give
Go on.
it a shake. I've given it a
Jack
shake.
Parsons, you are the...
Has cost me $2.90, right?
Yes.
For the olive oil and the menthol.
I've had
right?
the menthol. I use them quite often, menthol, to clear my nose.
And one of them can
Living in the city, it's a filthy place.
last me
Yes?
5 years and more.
What? Hang on.
Because
How
all
does
you
it
do-
fit in
all
with
you-
shaving?
Yeah, all you do is you just upend the bottle and you get a light film of olive oil with menthol in the palm of your hand. And then you just rub that just gently against the face.
Yeah.
And you shave there and you will get
With
yourself...
what? With what, Tom? With what
You
blade
still have
do
to use razors, though.
You still have to use razors.
Flash ones.
Yeah,
Flash
but
ones.
I'm talking about the expense of shaving foam. Did anybody realise how cruel on the face and expensive shaving foam is? It's
I
what,
have
£3
no
a
teeth
canister?
now, Tom, but for many years I used salt and the rinds of lemons
You just give me a
to
good
brush
tip there
my
because...
teeth. I have no teeth now,
Well, I was
but I
gonna say
saved
you-
a fortune.
Give me
That's
a
not
good
the
tip
point.
because when I meet you, I'm not going to smack you in the mouth. There'd be no point, would there?
Me and you are going to have it. We have to sort this out. Anyway,
I shall
that's
do
not
what
the
Mike
point,
Tyson
you know.
used to- I shall catch
It's
you on
the
the tip of the
field and
nose.
the knower of the field.
Drive
And if
the
I
nose
were a
bone up
mouse,
into the... What?
while you were away emptying whatever you were doing,
No, listen, I've got an email from a mouse.
was the honest there?
It says...
Sent the facts.
It says...
I would like to outline my disgust over the comments made by your guest. On your radio programme, I am a little mouse with emotions and feelings. All I want to do is get on with my life, and it makes me feel sad when I hear comments implying I should not have been brought back to life. As you can imagine, I was so happy to be reincarnated after many years of discomfort and boredom, and I was so grateful to those lovely scientists who cloned me. I was particularly...
Who's this starting to sound like?
That was a proper man. I tell you what, I believe that mouse, Tom.
I was particularly insulted by the comments made by your guest, which implied that I was not a normal mouse. I am not sure exactly what you meant by it, but I can assure you, sir, that I'm completely normal in every sense of the word. I don't normally get angry, but I hope you will forgive me in this instance. Regards, Mr. Mouse. Whoop-de-dee-dee.
So they have already
Well, I
cloned,
tell you what,
have
when
already
I
cloned
booked
a human being
Catty
from a
Cat for the
mouse.
weekend,
Hey, you
you know, when I booked Catty Cat for the weekend,
Yeah.
I've got her email, I'm inviting that mouse.
And what would be your preferences then, with
My
Catherine
kink,
Cat and a
I
mouse in
haven't
the
got-
same
I
room?
tell you what, I'm not kinky, Tom, I promise you.
Of course you are.
I really, well, you know, I got a
Of course
feeling,
you are.
the more depraved you can be, the less depraved you want to be. You know, that way. We can all imagine it, but they don't really. But the mouse coming round, me and Kinky Cat, I don't know. I'd like to go to the ballet. I don't know whether any of that.
Shall
but
I tell
that's
you?
not the point.
Shall I tell you?
Sacrifice.
I'll tell you who I was disappointed didn't get
Go
through
on.
to Catherine this evening.
Yes.
A young man who I'm in correspondence with to persuade him to come on and talk to her about his preference.
Yes.
He is attracted sexually
Yes.
and emotionally to trees.
It's easily done. I know a place called Franklin Beaches, and there's not, I live in the city. We don't see a lot of trees. And I must say, there's one or two bits of bark that have a special place in my heart. If that makes any difference, I don't suppose it does.
We'll not get onto the sexual
We
side.
won't. But no, the point
says it's
is that
purely
woman
emotional.
saying, if I was a mouse, if
Yeah.
I was a rodent,
Yes.
if I had the opportunity to suffer like the Lord suffered for us. I would like to be a rodent and do that for all of us.
Thank you for that, Chris. And it reminds me of a great sketch, Fiona, which you have probably never heard because you're too young for Monty Python.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody should be exposed to its dangers from time... no matter what their age. Have you heard of the Monty Python sketch called the... Who's Got the Mouse?
Are we talking about mouse again?
Get the weather. Yes, we'll get the weather. Is the next thing. Very important to hear the weather. 'Cause it's a flood alert and a warning and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
We'll get that. And then we'll regroup and listen to the mouse problem. No, I don't even... No, we won't, actually. It's not that funny. It's clever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a parody on what it was like to be a gay man in the 1960s, because that's when Monty Python was out.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of being gay...
60s, was it?
70s then. Okay. Late 60s, early 70s. It's a parody of what it was like to be gay in the 60s, 70s, except instead of being gay, they're men who wish they were mice. Oh, well, you've laughed there.
Play 2 UK. Headlines.
Oh, sugar. The headlines, right.
Somebody's been playing around with the running order, that's what it is.
Yeah, is that what it is? 'Cause we're not supposed to be doing the headlines.
No.
Okay, well, in that case, then, the headlines. A group of monks had a fight now, I can't remember where it was, Arimathea, I think. A group of monks were coming one way, and a group of pilgrims were coming the other way, and they kind of went, what are you looking at? And it all kicked off in the square, not the car park.
Okay.
That was the news.
Excellent.
UK. Weather.
Heavy rain and strong winds in the southeast will clear during the evening. Many central and eastern parts will then have a dry night. The north and west will be windy with heavy showers. Gales are likely in southwest Scotland. Looking on to tomorrow, a windy day with gales in northwest England and Northern Ireland. Sunny spells but also occasional showers with a longer spell of heavy rain for northwest England and Northern Ireland.
You're up to date on Play 2 UK.
In a world obsessed with celebrities, one woman wanted only one thing: to wake up in the morning to a genuine poster of David Hasselhoff on her wall. To have that poster contain a personal message to her in his very own handwriting. She was faced with fake after fake. Where could she turn for help? The answer was simple. Universal Posters. They have a range of approved celebrity pictures, which even come complete with a personalized message in the celebrity's very own handwriting. This could all be yours for just £7.99. So go to playradiouk.com and click on the Universal Poster banner. Play Radio UK and Universal Posters. Now showing on a PC near you.
Tommy Boyd on Play 2 UK. The original cunning linguist.
So this evening the topics have been cloning, the arts, and sex above and beyond, you know, the missionary position in the bedroom twice a week. Her arts correspondent being also a full-time hooker. And a kind soul, and a wise soul, too. I wasn't expecting, when I asked her which was her favourite production of Hamlet, for her to not only remember the name of the Russian director and the Russian actor who played Hamlet, but that was impressive, considering she saw it about 30 years ago.
Yeah, she is impressive, though, isn't she?
John has emailed, "Hi, Tommy, I am live at the moment, and I'm going to hook up the apparatus to listen in bed. Bit complicated, but I have an FM transmitter. At least I am here. I will see what I can do with the request, but we call the local radio down here in Cornwall Pasty Radio. It's crap, capital crap. I try never to listen to it. Then there is Pirate FM, equally shite. Sorry about the shite bit, but the ads are so corny it drives me mad. Speak soon, love your shows. Catching up with the iPod casts. Outstanding." Jamie in Renfrewshire, who is hooked up. Nick, talking about next Monday's special on what is called local radio, mainly in the UK. Nick says, "I do, on occasion, listen to various local radio stations when in the car. iStar Radio, Bristol, and because you have asked, I have had a little listen to BBC Somerset. Now, while they all work well as music radio stations, which is what they are, I have no interest in any long-term listening because I find music radio to be too out of date. The one redeeming factor for the local radio station is the local news, which holds a curiosity factor, and by this I mean I'm interested because I may hear something about someone or something I know about, which is the voyeur in me. I enjoy the occasional quiz that may be on, and I enjoy the banter between those in the studio. Gives the impression of people who are getting on together as pals and not just doing a job, if you know what I mean. By out of date, I mean of no use anymore. We all have our Walkmans, mini-disc players, MP3 players, and there is such a large storage facilities on these items now, we can hold hours worth of music of our own choosing. Now, if the format allowed for more chat and less music, I would listen more. I used to work in a factory with Radio 1 on all day, 8 to 10 hours music, 5 days a week. No, thank you. My preference in radio listening is 5 Live and TalkSport for sports, chat and live events. And current events, chat shows except Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday between 8 and midnight. In all honesty, I don't have any time left for local radio after spending my time with Sky Sports, Talk Radio and Play Radio. That's Nick. That's good. Well, we'll archive some of these comments about local radio for next Monday's special.
Yeah, I found your Monty Python mouse problem.
Oh, well played. This is a cartoon group of people marching towards us. Now they're demonstrating, putting up banners saying things like, mice is nice, hands off mice, ho ho ho, traps must go. And now a television documentary on the mouse problem. Outside of a club called Squeakorama and another club called the Little White Rodent, and a striptease club called Eek Eek, another sex club called Carephilia Go-Go.
Yes, the mouse problem. This week the world around us looks at the growing social phenomenon of mice and men. What makes a man want to be a mouse?
Well, it's not a crime to be a mouse. It just sort of happens to you. All of a sudden you realise that's what you want to be.
When did you first notice these, should we say, tendencies?
Well, I was about 17 and some mates and me went to a party. And, well, we had quite a lot to drink, and then some of the fellas there started handing cheese around. Well, just out of curiosity, I tried a bit, and, well, that was that.
Yes. And what else did these fellows do?
Well, some of them started dressing up as mice a bit, and then when they got the costumes on, they started squeaking.
And was that all?
That was all.
And what was your reaction to this?
Well, I was shocked.
Yes.
But gradually I came to feel that I was more at ease with other mice.
A typical case whom we shall refer to as Mr. A, although his real name is this.
Arthur Jackson, 32A Milton Avenue, Hounslow, Middlesex.
What is it that attracts someone like Mr. A to this way of life? I have with me a consultant psychiatrist.
Well, we've just heard a typical case history. I myself have over 700 similar histories, all fully documented. Would you care to choose one? Mr. Arthur Aldridge of Leamington.
It's a bit complicated, but what's happened is that Graham Chapman has come out as the psychiatrist. And as he's introduced, he puts a sign up on the table in front of him which says, Arthur Cagoule and the Amazing Janet. And then, when he's asked the first question by Michael Palin, he says, would you like to pick a case? And Janet comes out dressed in the traditional magician's assistant costume of a blue corset and bunny ears, and offers Michael Palin a selection of cases in document form. Graham Chapman has covered his eyes and is now guessing which psychiatric case Michael Palin has chosen at random.
Well, that's amazing. Kiro? Amazing. Thank you, Janet.
And she dances off.
Cargill, speaking as a psychiatrist as opposed to a conjurer...
Oh.
What makes certain men want to be mice?
Well, we psychiatrists have found that over 8% of the population will always be mice. I mean, after all, there's something of the mouse in all of us. I mean, how many of us can honestly say that at one time or another he hasn't felt sexually attracted to mice? I know I have. I mean, most normal adolescents go through a stage of squeaking 2 or 3 times a day. Most youngsters, on the other hand, some youngsters, are attracted to it by its very illegality. It's like murder. Make a thing illegal, and it acquires a mystique. Look at arson. I mean, how many of us can honestly say that at one time or another he hasn't set fire to some great public building? I know I have. The only way to bring the crime figures down is to reduce the number of offences. Get it out in the open. I know I have.
The amazing Cargill and Janet. What a lot of people don't realise is that a mouse, once accepted, can fulfil a very useful role in society. Indeed, there are examples throughout history of famous men now known to have been mice.
Veni, vidi, vici.
This is Napoleon now on the beach, pulling a piece of cheese out from his tunic and eating it. Does this make any sense to you, you people of the younger generation who don't remember all this stuff?
Yeah, of course it does.
Seriously, had you seen this sketch before?
I don't think so. I've seen a lot of Monty Python before.
Yeah. I'm just going to run it to see if it takes us through into the gangster scene. Hold on. I'll just zip it forward a bit.
I can't believe this was 1969.
I feel that these poor, unfortunate people should be...
Mr. A tells us what actually goes on at these mouse parties.
Well, first of all, you get shown to your own private hole in the skirting board. Then you put the mask on. Then you scurry into the main room and perhaps take a run in the wheel.
The remainder of this film was taken secretly at one of these mouse parties by a BBC cameraman posing as a vole. As usual, we apologise for the poor quality of the film.
Well, then you steal some cheese, brie or camembert or cheddar or Gouda if you're on the harder stuff. You might go and see one of the blue cheese films. Then there's a big clock in the middle of the room, and about 12:50 you climb up it, and then eventually it strikes 1 and you all run down.
What's that?
That's the farmer's wife.
Perhaps we need to know more of these mice men before we can really judge them. Perhaps not. Anyway, our 30 minutes are up.
Yeah, brilliant, really. And John Cleese is, as usual, when he was a mixed-up young man, smoking 40 cigarettes a day and all over the place, and apparently suffering from all amounts of anxiety and blood pressure and hypertension, all this. He was a genius, wasn't he? Funny. And now that he's apparently sort of become sane and sensible, he's just not quite the brilliant comic character that he was. I thought it was just such a great performance of the kind of person who is a reformed something or other, and who appears on a documentary, kind of acting a certain amount of contriteness for his wayward ways before, but at the same time wanting to help.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant performance.
He's always got a glint in his eye.
Yeah.
As though he's about to burst out laughing. Like, he's really struggling to keep a straight face.
That's right. It works on that level. So there's the one level which is the actual performance itself, and then there's the other level where you can tell that it's John Cleese.
Yeah.
Taking the mick out of this kind of documentary.
Yeah.
Because he lets something slip there, because he tries to talk like that. You know, as if he is sort of working class. But he cannot resist but pronounce that French cheese correctly, because he's actually not working class at all, John Cleese. He comes from a very professional background. And so when it gets round to it, he does find himself saying, Camembert. But his site would say Camembert, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Camembert.
Good evening.
Good evening, Baron.
Good evening, Tommy. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
So?
Well, you were questioning about the, we were going to discuss the topic of dendrophilia, which happens to be my particular alignment. I'm wondering where I could start on this subject, because most people don't believe that it's a genuine...
Hang on. Baron. Stephen.
Yes.
You can come on again, Steve. This pathetic accent. That really was, I mean, hugely pathetic. What we'll do is, first of all, we'll talk about your belief that there is such a sexual fetish as dendrophilia. Dendrophilia, which is an attraction to...
It's a romantic or sexual attraction to trees.
Okay, I've had an email from you about this, and you say that no less than Tolkien...
Allegedly, should we say allegedly?
Well, he can't sue you, mate. You're all right. He's long dead.
Yeah, okay, but hey, I'm worried about getting, attacked by.
You have to be careful. I mean, if you said that a Tory councillor was a dendrophiliac, then the way things are at the moment for John Gaunt, then there'd probably be people set on you. But you're allowed to say that Tolkien fancied trees.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story. Now, this is the most well-known part of the story. Somebody was trying to cut down Tolkien's favourite oak tree. And moments later, they saw a rabid, axe-wielding writer killing him because he was killing his... Well, he obviously, the guy was trying to cut down his love. And if you look at it...
Yeah, well, people don't... No. People don't like having trees cut down. I've got a lady over the back of me who got really upset.
Look, this was like... He was trying to kill this guy. Yeah, he wasn't just warning him.
Yeah, but that's not a sexual fetish.
Well, I did a little research into Tolkien's childhood.
You can't even pronounce it properly. No, I'm sorry. This is
Tolkien, I can pronounce it properly.
It's not pronounced Tolkien, it's Tolkien.
Tolkien, sorry.
Tolkien. Look, just forget it. For a moment, I was prepared to believe that we had a listener who had a fetish for trees, although I think in the back of my mind I was always 90% certain no.
But it does exist.
I dare say it does.
All right.
Possibly. Theoretically, in some people's minds. And as do a great many other preferences, strange preferences, that people have. I'm trying to think of any of mine that I could broadcast, and I've decided not
I can come up with one that very few people...
I don't want you to lie on your back and come up with anything, all right? I want you to just stick with what you've got. You've got a mild fetish, as we discovered earlier when we were talking to Catherine. You have a mild fetish for bondage and domination, and that's absolutely fine, otherwise we wouldn't have St. Trinians. So, okay, well, I'll say goodnight to you.
It's a bit before my time, but I kind of remember it.
They've made a remake of it.
Have they? Oh, good.
Look out for it. You'll find it at some point when you're not Googling whatever you do Google. So, I'll say goodnight to you and thank you for your call.
Yes, good night.
Yes, good night. He's persevering.
He is. Should we take a quick ad break?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Because I've decided I don't do them sort of spoofy calls, like, marks out of 10 for trying. 8, 7.
If you or someone with you gets hit in the eye of a firework, this might help save it. Don't rub your eye. If the tissue's torn, rubbing may increase the bleeding. Don't rinse it. This can cause as much damage as rubbing it. Don't stick ointment in the eye. It might not be sterile and it could cause infection. Forget painkillers. They could thin the blood and increase bleeding and they won't even touch the pain. Tape a foam cup or something to protect what's left of the eye from further injury and get straight to hospital. Don't mess with fireworks.
Right then, what was the web address?
passiononline.co.uk.
Oh, you would look really sexy in that. Okay, that's in the shopping cart.
Imagine the fun we could have with them.
Yeah. Okay, I've ordered something for you. Something for us. How about this for me?
passiononline.co.uk has something for everybody, with a fast, discreet delivery service, competitive pricing, and a free gift with every order for a limited time. See our massive product mix online right now. Click passiononline.co.uk, the world's sexiest online shop.
My mum logged on to Play Radio UK and treated herself to some amazing Swarovski jewellery from the Scala Jewellery. She looks $1 million. You should see all the other mums and dads' faces when she picks me up from school. She's the classiest mum ever. She said the Scala Jewellery is handmade in Italy with Swarovski stones. Mum said if I'm good, she'll buy me some of the Scala Jewellery when I'm a bit older. Have a look for yourself. Go to playradiouk.com and click on the Scala Jewellery today.
Tommy Boyd on Play 2 UK, a supersong of sanctity in a weird and wacky world.
10 to midnight is the time. This from John DeHora has emailed. Studio at playradiouk.com. Hi, studio and audience. He says, I'm just flicking through a book called The Cambridge Handbook of Metaphor and Thought. The Cambridge Handbook of Metaphor and Thought offers the most comprehensive collection of essays in multidisciplinary metaphor scholarship that has ever been published. These essays explore the significance of metaphor in language, thought, culture, and artistic expression. There are 5 main themes in the book: the roots of metaphor, metaphor understanding, metaphor in language and culture, metaphor in reasoning and feeling, and metaphor in non-verbal expression. Contributors come from a variety of academic disciplines, including psychology, linguistics, philosophy, cognitive science, literature, education, music, and law. Looks interesting. John DeHora. Be yourself at mail.com. Choose from 200 plus mail addresses. Get a free account at www.mail.com.
What are you reading that out for?
No virus found in this incoming message. Checked by AVG at http://www.avg.com. Version 80175/virus database 270.90/1778. Release date 11/10/08. Why do we have to get that crap on every email we send? You think of the amount of energy that the planet could save if all our emails didn't have all this attendant bollocks? Think about it, it's got to be using up carbon, hasn't it?
So how much oxygen did you just use up reading it out?
Precisely.
How much carbon dioxide have you polluted into the air reading it out?
Well, I'm in a sedentary position, a lot less than if I was on an exercise bike or a bicycle or jogging. I mean, I've been on about this before, but it's a shocking fact that joggers expel almost as much carbon dioxide as a modest family car.
Really?
Can you believe that? Yeah, it's a fact. It is a fact, and I'm the only person.
One of your facts?
No, I'm the only person on the planet who is aware of this ludicrous fact that if you go jogging, if you jog for a mile, you actually put as much greenhouse gas carbon into the atmosphere as a family car doing the same bloody journey.
Really?
Yeah. A family of 4 out jogging out poisons a family of 4 in a Range Rover. Mile for mile.
Really? You've done the maths, have you?
Yeah, totally. It's a fact.
Okay.
I'd put up my house on it if anybody wants to have the argument.
Right.
Have we got Oscar?
We have.
Good, excellent. Welcome back, Oscar.
Yeah, hi Tommy. I thought I'd just come back to you. Don't wish to be a nuisance, but I wanted to kind of get your thoughts about the John Gaunt incident, and it's one of those things that I know that it's not going to be easy to discuss it anywhere else, and I guess it's kind of relevant to some of the stuff that Play Radio's doing with groundbreaking talk radio in inverted commas programs. For anyone who doesn't know, my understanding of what happened is that on his program, I think on Friday, John Gaunt interviewed a local councillor about the subject of children being placed in foster care. And I think the councillor was kind of arguing that children should not be moved from a care home, a children's home, into a foster home with foster parents if those foster parents are smokers, because the passive smoking might be harmful to the children. They'd be better off left in the care home. And Gaunt was arguing the opposite, that even if they do smoke, the children are going to be better off being placed with the foster parents rather than being left in the care home situation. And I think in the course of this debate, he's got a little bit heated, and he's known for obviously getting quite ranty with his opinions and the things he talks about, and he's supposedly called this councillor a Nazi and a few other insults as well. But I was wondering, I find myself, even though I'm not a fan of John Gaunt, I find myself getting a little bit concerned about the fact that, especially hot on the heels of the Manuel-gate incident, that we've got a bit of a worrying trend appearing here where people are getting offended rather easily. And I'm sort of thinking, well, is it really that bad? First of all, if someone like a councillor comes on a talk radio programme, is he not going to be expecting that he might have to have a bit of a ding-dong? And okay, in a way, the word Nazi is offensive. Certainly, obviously, what the Nazis did in the times of the Nazis was a horrendous thing, and we all know that. But it's one of those words that you shouldn't use it in the situation that Gaunt was in. I think it weakens his argument to use things like that. It would be much better if he keeps his cool and he's calm and he's able to argue his case without having to resort to those kind of personal insults. But it's a little bit worrying that you can't, on a talk radio station which is known to be a little bit controversial, that the guy is getting pulled up for using terms like that, or for calling people something like that. I mean, I know of situations on talk radio stations where people will use language like that, and obviously it's in a slightly different vein, it's a bit satirical, and it works, it comes across okay. But it's also kind of worrying, I think, that what you've got here, what's happened, is because Gaunt is such a controversial figure, that he's got people who hate him. And it seems rather like what we got with the Russell Brand thing. A lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon, and even though they didn't hear it, they've just heard about it. And it's the station has now suspended him based on complaints from people who have heard that he said it and have sent in emails and that complaining about, well, this was a terrible thing for him to say. And as I understand it, I don't know whether the actual councillor who was called this, whether he himself has submitted any kind of complaint about the way he was treated. So I was kind of wondering, do you really think, I mean, is it not worrying that things are getting so drastic over something like that? Is it not another overreaction? Is it not another case of how we're allowing people who shouldn't be allowed to determine what happens in radio? Those people are being allowed to cause problems for people when they shouldn't be. I mean, I really don't think that Gaunt is that good a broadcaster in a lot of ways, but he's obviously there for that purpose. They want him there to be controversial, and it seems to have gone horrendously wrong for all the wrong reasons. I wonder what you think about that.
Well, we're going to talk about it next Monday when we talk about local radio. And I want you on the show.
Okay.
Because you obviously, you're interested in radio and you're interested in the wider world. I've heard things about John Gort's situation, which I can't repeat, which might explain the action that the radio station has taken. I think all the points that you've made carefully and objectively are accurate. I think I haven't heard the tape, and the only transcript I've seen has been pieced together by the Daily Mirror, which we read out a bit earlier, which suggested that he may have called the councillor a Nazi and then softened that insult by saying you're a health Nazi. But whatever was said, and I'd rather wait until I've heard the tape, and it's not on the internet yet, as far as I know, or see a full transcript of it before I make my final judgment, and I suspect, Oscar, so would you. But on the evidence that we have at this moment in time, both you and me, I think you and I fully agree. It's getting a bit of a worrying time for broadcasters in conventional broadcasting, isn't it?
I think so. I think that's one of the things that worries me. We seem to be getting into a situation where everyone's going to be watching themselves and minding their P's and Q's to an excessive extent at the moment because of all this kind of stuff going on.
I mean, if he'd said, if you were to say to a member of the public or anybody in public, I suspect that during the war, your very right-wing politics would lead me to believe that somehow you were an overt or a covert Nazi, then clearly you've got a libel or a slander or both on your hands, because you are actually accusing somebody of being sympathetic towards a heinous regime. But in the context of this conversation, it lies somewhere in between such an accusation, which it clearly was not. It was a metaphorical accusation.
Yes, that's right.
It lies somewhere between that and Basil Fawlty saying at some point during some Fawlty Towers episode, this is exactly how Nazi Germany started, which is a piece of workplace humour that you often hear being bandied about, but it is in no way an accusation that somebody has any sympathies for Hitler's regime. Anyhow, we've run out of time tonight, but what we may come back to it tomorrow if you want to, or if anybody wants to, then I'm up for it. I'd very much like to read a transcript or hear the tape, and then we can really know what we've got to go on. And if I can find a tape, I will play it on this station quite happily for the purposes of reportage. But I do want to talk about radio, and I do want to talk about where radio's got itself to next Monday when we do a special. And Oscar, I'd love it if you'd be able to contribute, yeah?
I shall certainly do my best to do that, yes.
Good man, thanks. Good night.
Okay, cheers, good night. Bye.
Thanks, Fiona, good show.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow at 8 o'clock, good night.
Good night.